Welcome to Le Weekend, your essential roundup of French news on culture, business, the economy, and current affairs. We bring you a convenient way to catch up on the stories from the past week in France, plus an additional focus feature blending reportage and cultural context. You'll find a seamless recap of the week's most important headlines without losing any content from our previous daily format, perfect for those who want to catch up in just one episode. Le Weekend is designed to keep you informed and engaged with a lighter touch at the end. Let's dive in. These are the headlines on Monday, August 10th. Paris requires wearing a helmet and reflective gear for all electric scooter riders in Paris and the inner suburbs known as Petite Couronne. The police prefecture said the measure applied to motorized personal mobility devices such as electric scooters, segways, unicycles and hoverboards, as reported by Le Figaro. Revolut obtained a full banking license in France following a joint assessment by the European Central Bank and the French banking regulator. Béatrice Cossat de Murguer, Revolut's general manager for Western Europe, said the bank will start by serving customers in France before gradually expanding across Western Europe, as reported by Euronews. The Golfec nuclear plant reactor near Toulouse is shut down again. Barely restarted on Friday, the unit was put into preventive shutdown on Saturday evening to comply with environmental limits on the warming of the Garonne River, which is approaching the threshold of 28 degrees centigrade, as reported by Le Figaro. The headlines on Tuesday, August 11th. France introduced tough fines for unsolicited telemarketing calls. France has banned unsolicited calls under a new law to protect consumers and shield vulnerable people from fraudulent commercial practices. Individuals who make illegal calls can be fined up to 75,000 euros per call when the new law comes into effect on Tuesday, as reported by RFI. The heat waves that have hit France in recent months could result in a 10 to 15 billion in direct and indirect costs, approximately $17 billion US. French Environment Minister Monique Barbutte cited estimates from France's national statistics agency ANSEE and said that the heat wave period was not over yet, as reported by Reuters. Nearly 70% of France is under water restrictions, as a crisis meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, against a backdrop of intense drought aggravated by repeated heat waves over the past 3 months. The government will bring together water management stakeholders to take stock of the situation and its consequences, as reported by France 24. The headlines on Wednesday, August 12th. 1/5 of France's nuclear capacity is offline due to extreme weather added to a jellyfish proliferation. In total, 13 of the 57 reactors in EDF's nuclear fleet were affected, resulting in a more than 20% shortfall in nuclear power production capacity, a record deficit, as reported by Le Monde. A press body asked the French competition watchdog to take action over Google AI. A French press association has asked the country's competition authority to take action against Google's artificial intelligence-generated article summaries, which the trade group says deprive newspapers and magazines of readers. The group has called on the regulator to make a decision similar to that which ordered Meta
to open a new tab to put forward a payment plan and resume talks with traditional media seeking fees for the use of their content by AI tools, as reported by Reuters. The government officially announced a new back-to-school subsidy for the purchase of second-hand electric vehicles. The possibility of financing the purchase or lease of a used electric vehicle using energy-saving certificates is touted as a strategic decision to accelerate the transition away from fossil fuels, as reported by Les Echos. The headlines on Thursday, August 13th. As drought grips France, tensions over drinking water mount. Environment Minister Monique Barbu called for stricter water use restrictions as water utilities face dwindling surface and groundwater reserves, with 40,000 people already affected by cutoffs, as reported by Le Monde. The French Prime Minister aims for a modest deficit reduction in 2027 with a target of 4.9%. Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu's draft budget is based on a realistic deficit reduction without any major reforms. The goal of bringing the deficit under 3% by 2029 now seems even more unlikely, according to sources reported by Le Monde. Firefighters called for a labor action on September 29th after their meeting with Interior Minister Laurent Nunez. That's a coalition of unions characterized as disappointing. The meeting was called to demand more resources to cope with an increasing number of crises, as reported by France 24. The headlines on Friday, August 14th. France's top court blocked a bill banning social media access for under 15s, saying it infringed upon freedom of expression, delivering a setback for President Emmanuel Macron, who asked his government to rewrite the legislation, as reported by Reuters. The French Finance Ministry was the target of a cyber attack. The full extent of the breach remained unclear, but it could concern several 100,000 people in France, as reported by Le Monde. A wildfire forced the evacuation of more than 500 people in France. Roughly 500 firefighters had been deployed to fight the flames in the Landes department, not long after wildfires died down in Gironde, as reported by Le Monde. You are listening to Le Weekend. And now that you're caught up with the news from the past week, it's time for our bonus story, where we dive a little bit deeper into one of the stories from the past week to provide context. Today, we look at why firefighters have been in the news in France this week. Last Thursday, 9 unions representing France's professional firefighters walked out of the Interior Ministry on Place Beauvau and told reporters bluntly that they were very disappointed. They had just spent nearly 2 hours with Interior Minister Laurent Nunez, pressing him on staffing levels, equipment, and pay after a summer that had stretched the country's fire services close to breaking point. The response, they said, offered no concrete answers, so the Intersyndicale, the coalition spanning the 3 unions and other firefighter unions, announced what it is billing as an intensive mobilization, a static demonstration on Place de la République from September 26 to 28, dubbed Les Colonnes de la Révolte, culminating in a national march on September 29th, timed to coincide with a broader public sector day of action. The firefighter union's demands are threefold: more resources to match a surging volume of emergency callouts, a large-scale recruitment drive to bolster a professional workforce of roughly 44,000, and swift passage of a long-promised bill to modernize French civil security, which Nunes has now pledged to present to unions in early September. Union Representative Xavier Boy summed up the grievance in stark terms. Year after year, call volumes climb and the risk facing crews multiply, but the resources allocated to meet them do not keep pace. This is not the first mass firefighter mobilization France has ever seen. Almost 7 years ago, striking firefighters descended on the streets of the capital. Parliamentary material recorded demands for more professional firefighters and records violence against firefighters, including 120 incidents per month in 2018. What makes the current standoff notable is less the substance of the grievance than the timing. It lands in the middle of a brutal wildfire season and is being negotiated with a minister who in a previous role once stood in front of the cameras and told a stunned nation that firefighters had just saved Notre Dame Cathedral. Firefighters occupy a unique place in French public life. And to understand it, we are going back to 1699, when Louis XIV granted an engineer named François de Maurier de Perrier a royal monopoly on the manufacture of pumps for firefighting, and then jumping to 1716, when a formal corps of 60 garde-pompes was created in Paris to operate them. For nearly a century, that civilian corps did the job reasonably well, until July 1810, when the Austrian ambassador to Paris threw a lavish ball to celebrate Napoleon's marriage to Archduchess Marie-Louise. The wooden ballroom caught fire, and the poorly organized garde-pompe could not control it, and several guests were injured in the rush to escape. Furious and embarrassed, Napoleon acted the following year. His decree in 1811 created the Bataillon des Sapeurs-Pompiers de Paris, not a municipal service but a military unit, staffed by army engineers, sapeurs or sappers, and placed under the authority of the prefect of police. That hybrid name, sapeur-pompier, has stuck to this day across all of France, but the military structure Napoleon imposed on Paris did not spread nationwide. It survives, largely intact, in only two places. The Brigade Sapeurs-Pompiers de Paris, which grew into a regiment in 1867 and took its current name in 1967, and the Marseille Naval Fire Battalion, and also some military civil security formations. Everywhere else in the country, firefighting is organized through civilian departmental services known as SDIS, staffed overwhelmingly by volunteers alongside career professionals. Currently, 78% are volunteers, 17% professionals, and 5% military. The BSPP that resulted from this quirk of history is now the largest fire brigade in Europe and the third largest urban fire service on Earth after Tokyo and New York, with around 8,500 personnel who are technically soldiers of the French Army's engineering corps rather than city employees. Recruits sign 5-year military contracts, pass a strict selection process of fitness and psychological tests, and train at a base outside Paris that includes basic infantry instruction, including weapons handling, a detail that surprises many visitors who assume firefighters everywhere are simply municipal workers in red trucks. So while the firefighters marching on September 29th will include Paris Brigade personnel, they belong to a genuinely distinct institutional lineage from the volunteer-heavy departmental services that make up the vast bulk of the profession elsewhere in France. One reason their unions negotiate separately and their grievances don't always map neatly onto the national picture. If any single event cemented the modern image of the Paris Brigade in the public imagination, it was the night of April 15, 2019, as flames tore through Notre Dame's cathedral, medieval timber roof and its spire collapsed live on television. It was far from certain that the building itself would survive. Around 9:49 p.m., with the fire threatening to reach the North Tower's belfry, the Deputy Interior Minister overseeing the response voiced the fear gripping the country, that no one yet knew whether hundreds of firefighters battling the blaze from inside and out would be enough to save it. That senior Interior Minister official was Laurent Nunez, the same official who 6 years later, as full Interior Minister now, has just told the same profession of unions that he understands their frustration but cannot yet offer concrete commitments. That night of the Notre Dame blaze, roughly 400 BSPP firefighters fought the fire for more than 12 hours. Brigade Commander General Jean-Claude Gallet made the call to abandon the roof and timber attic as lost and concentrate everything on stopping the fire reaching the twin bell towers, a decision credited with saving the cathedral's overall structure. 20 firefighters climbed inside the towers themselves to fight the fire at close range, at what officials openly described as serious risk to their own lives. Later reporting on the incident described crews being handed on assignments so dangerous that the first team ordered to take hoses up into the towers initially refused, before a second crew accepted the mission and is credited with saving the North Tower from collapse. This is the kind of episode that does more for a profession's public standing than any pay negotiation ever could. That standing shows up reliably in polls today. A cross-national survey by German research institute GfK Verein has repeatedly found firefighters to be the most trusted profession measured across dozens of countries, with French respondents placing extraordinary confidence in the sapeurs-pompiers, trust levels reported as high as 99% in some French regional polling built on that data, comfortably ahead of doctors or nurses. Earlier waves of the same global study put French trust in firefighters at 90%, still enough to the top of the international rankings. Firefighting museum figures interviewed on the subject point to two simple explanations. Firefighters are visibly available around the clock, and the uniform itself carries a kind of civic charisma that few other professions can match. That reservoir of goodwill is precisely what gives this month's dispute its political weight. Unlike rail or refinery strikes, our firefighters' mobilization does not easily read as a sectional interest group flexing muscle. It reads to most of the public as the country's most admired workers saying they can no longer do the job properly. Union officials have framed the core problem as structural rather than seasonal. For years, they argue, emergency callouts have climbed and society's risks have diversified, from urban violence to a lengthening wildfire season, while government resourcing has failed to keep up. This year's megafires across southern France, arriving in the same weeks as the union meeting with Nunez, have only sharpened that argument. Whether the promised civil security modernization bill due to be unveiled to unions in early September does enough to head off the September 29th mobilization remains an open question. But the underlying tension is not new. It is the same one French governments have wrestled with since Louis XIV's privilege on fire pumps in 1699, a public that reveres its firefighters almost unconditionally, and a state that has to decide budget cycle after budget cycle how much that reverence is actually worth in staffing and equipment.
Thank you for listening to Le Weekend, your one-stop destination for the main headlines in France. Catch our weekly roundup every weekend wherever you get your podcasts. Stay informed.